Hey guys, welcome to our new video. This is
Stuffed crust
and Cold Pizza. This is going to be part of a series where we're talking about our origin story, our leaving the cult story. Every XJW, they have their own story, and this is just part of ours and our own experiences. So it'll be part of a series, and today we're just gonna talk about like our youth and how we grew up.
Yeah, we grew up in a predominantly urban area.
Very city and busy. Lots of people.
Lots of preaching, because every opportunity you had stepping out was a preaching opportunity, basically.
Yeah, we would step out from our doorstep, and it would be you and like a group of people, and you guys would spread out and literally do street preaching, like at the street.
Yes, and I preferred that because it was non-committal.
It very was non-committal, and a lot of times people weren't there to have a conversation, if I remember correctly. They would just like kind of walk and take the track.
Yeah, you didn't really have to say anything. You just say, hey, just read this while you're on your way to work or on your way to whatever.
Yeah, and it was usually like, I remember a lot of tracks, not too many magazines. It was a lot of tracks, and like the old trifold ones.
And let's be honest, like, the best part was always going to the restaurant with the brothers at the end of the day and going to eat. Yeah.
Always Burger King, always McDonald's, always something simple.
Or like a Puerto Rican restaurant.
Yeah, lots of Puerto Rican food.
It'd either be cheap or we go to like a sit down. So.
Yeah, no in between. Lots of good memories. It's kind of weird that you have these good memories that you associate with being in the organization. But...
It's because a lot of it barely had to do with anything spiritual.
Yeah, the memories you have as growing up that you look fond on have nothing to do with about being a witness. It has to do with like everything before or after it.
Yes.
So like the conversations you would have with a brother about things that are not in the organization, or like the friendships, or like the food, but none of that is relative to being a witness.
I do have to say, I felt like being in such a diverse environment, there was so much more, I would say, warmth among the people, because it was just a lot of humble people, a lot of people who just, especially even our family, we came, when they came to whatever urban city we're from, they worked hard, basically. And they started at the bottom, and they raised their family, and they were able to be successful and find a community in which they felt accepted it. So
yeah, when you go back to like our parents' story, they're very nice and giving people and very accepting. So the way I always viewed it is that the way they came to the truth, because they are the first generation of the truth, and it died there. So it went one generation.
Yeah.
It didn't go far, but like because of how willing they are to listen to people, that is what like tricked them into being witnesses.
yeah, they were so nice. I mean, they're the type of people to open the door to salesmen, so...
Literally, door to door. Several times I've had to go to their house and convince them to not buy into those schemes. And witnesses, a lot of the tactics that they use are the same that door-to-door salesmen use.
Exactly.
Like these roundabout ways of convincing people that what they have is a better product than the other product. So their church is better than other churches.
I do think, though, our waking up has really opened their eyes to how tricked they were all these years.
Yeah, it's a lot better.
Yeah.
But basically, we grew up in a big city, lots of preaching. Brothers and sisters were very faithful. We're talking like ex or current Bethelites, elders who knew people who were a part of the committee,
and there was literally a brother who was known for being homeless, basically, and just preaching all day. And people would look at him like, oh my gosh, I tried to give him money, but he wouldn't take it because all he wanted to do was preach all the time.
I remember hearing stories about that brother specifically eating trash rather than eating like restaurant trash, right?
Yes.
Technically edible, but like rather than accepting money from witnesses. And he would tell the witnesses, instead of donating to him, to give it to the organization.
It's kind of sad.
It is really sad.
He died basically just preaching to the last breath, so...
Yeah, he lived and breathed Watchtower.
So it's just to kind of create this picture of what community we grew up in.
Our father was an elder.
Yes, for many years.
Yeah, and he was out of elders, he was definitely a more neutral party than most elders, I think.
I think this was brought up in a few other podcasts, is that whenever you're the elder that everyone approaches, usually you don't last long in the congregation and the organization in general, because my dad was that person, the one that you would go to talk about your problems. He would try to find a way to help you without having to get you out of the organization, basically.
Yeah, because on paper, not every problem that's brought up to you should go to the other elders and be brought up as a problem.
Exactly.
Some things can live and die there. But, you know, everything's blown out of proportion, and there's so many elders that are haughty and, like, you know, they just think it's so important that everybody knows everything, and that's where you get all the gossip and everything.
My dad was the type of person to, if he knew that you were struggling as a parent to support, he would literally take money off his own paycheck and give it to them, because he knew that the organization wasn't going to give them the money. So
yeah, in reality, the organization it relies on not its own it doesn't rely on its own made up laws of the organization, the rules. It really depends on the brothers. That's why elders are the enforcers. And then when people need help, it's not like the organization helping people. Like when it was in the pandemic, it wasn't the organization actually helping people. It was down to a local level, people, brothers helping brothers. But you don't need the Jehovah's Witnesses for that. You just need people. It shows that people are good. You don't need the organization. Either way, though, Dad definitely was one of the better elders. Not perfect, you know, and issues like anybody else, but better.
But he liked to ride that thin line.
Yeah.
You know, he'd never study right before a meeting.
we never had a consistent family study.
I'm gonna be happy about that, actually, because
it was boring.
It was so boring, and then he wasn't very creative, so I preferred him not doing the family studies at all.
He would say, this Saturday or whatever day, we are gonna do a family study. We get to that, and then he says, okay, what do you guys want to study? He didn't plan anything.
And then he'd say, how do we know that Jehovah's name is Jehovah? And I'd be like, okay, what are we two?
Kids? Several times the lesson was, why is his name that? Yeah. And it means he causes to be or something, okay.
And we read where Jesus, say his name or something. He'd be like, see, even this exemplary person in the Bible said Jehovah, so
yeah,
believe it.
He was a good teacher, but not a good teacher. Also, he was good for somebody who was going to be a PMO and then later a POMO.
Yeah. And then on the other hand, you have our mother, and she is and was at that moment. She was very spiritual.
She was. We're talking about when we still lived in the city, right? Where she was literally at one point, the most peak of spirituality, working a job and also pioneering,
and raising us
full-time job. No,
raising all of us at the same time.
And raising we have a big family, several children. So yeah, a lot on her plate, but still able to do that. Literally, I'm sorry, more effort than what my father would put in, because giving talks and doing all these things everything was always last minute. Just look at the family study, right?
He would literally write his talks the day before.
Sometimes right before the talk. I could not live like that.
My mom would stress out. She'd be like, you haven't even practiced once.
Yeah. So we have this really strong foundation. We move to a more rural area at this point, right? I was younger, and you were a little bit older than are a little bit older than I am.
I was in high school. You were getting into middle school, I think.
Yeah, first year middle school, something like that. Either way, this rural area was a completely different feeling than when we lived in the city. This rural area, when you would go preaching, they would send us off not knowing where we were at. We don't know anything about this area. This is completely new and foreign to us. We don't know about all this driving and everything. And they would send us with our mom by ourselves to creepy middle nowhere spots.
Yes, where I'm saying the driveways were probably 2 miles in before you got to a house,
Yeah, legitimately.
In the middle of nowhere with a bunch of no trespassing signs and beware of dog and I'm not afraid to use my gun kind of signs.
Yeah. And I mean, if Trump was a politician back then, because he wasn't then, he was just TV star, millionaire, billionaire, whatever, they would have had Trump signs and everything. Things that now, if I was preaching, I would avoid, you know?
Yes.
Like racist things.
A lot of times we wouldn't even do it, but a brother would be like, did you preach these houses? We need our census. You know, we need to know if there's Latinos living in that area.
Yeah,
basically.
I don't know what the push was. And this was when we were in the Spanish congregation, because they know we were in Spanish before. We switched back and forth. But I don't know why the push was this. And part of it is also the fact that there was barely no Latinos, Spanish-speaking people there.
It was so disheartening, though.
Yeah.
Because we went from a very warm, loving congregations, ones that we were raised with, you know, they were our uncles and aunts and grandparents, basically. And then we go to this congregation, and after being there for almost a year, they were like, oh, we didn't know that you guys were a part of the congregation. Oh, now we can start inviting you guys to things.
Yeah.
So basically, for like a whole year, they ignored us. They wouldn't let us, instead of saying like, sister blah blah blah, answer the question, they would say, let the visitor in the back. For a whole year. You think we're visiting for a whole year?
Yeah, it's not like we hadn't been announced. We had been announced.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, it just upsets me thinking about it. But yeah, it was really cold, and it shows really how human the organization is. Like, the whole thing is like, oh, a cult, like, you know, the organization, you can be anywhere, and it's the same. The brothers are always going to treat you the same, and that is so not the case.
And the sexism was so unreal, you know? I've never... Basically, a brother told mom one time, like, to my dad, you need to shut your woman. You know?
Yeah.
And my mom was so mad.
Yeah, I mean, I remember also the thing, like a conversation between our parents and an elder or something, or maybe an elder's wife, was like, sister, you're no longer in this area. You're here in the South. And she was going at it like, the way it sounded was like, oh, not like, oh, like, you have to be different. It was more like, you have to, like, suck it up and just put up with it, right? Like, she didn't agree with it, but that's how it was.
Yeah. So far we were so super spiritual, right?
And then down
kind of like, not a studious kind of spiritual, but we were a very spiritual family.
We were a model family, and we're like, people were like, they are a tight family. They knew us as a tight family. They've always known us as a tight family, for sure.
I mean, I'm pretty sure there's people still in the inner city that go, that's the blah 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 family's block, you know?
Yeah.
Where we used to live, because everyone knew us.
Yeah, where we lived was so central in the territory, in the urban area, in the big city, that literally they called it our last name block. So that's hilarious to think about. At least recently, within the past like 10 years, that still was the case.
Yeah, we viewed it as an endearment. You know, and they were our family growing up.
Yeah, they were.
A lot of those people have passed or moved.
Yeah,
so many things have changed.
It's a really different feeling than here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyways, so it's a completely different feeling in this area, and our spirituality begins to wane, but we're still in it. We still believe
we're very
it.
much 100% still.
We're just
witnesses
discouraged
at that point, but we were very discouraged. And when our father came, I believe, and he saw the congregation that we were having to deal with for basically a whole year and a half.
He moved us out.
He was like, nope. We moved to the English.
Yeah. And then the English was a little better.
It was a lot better. It was like the type of congregation that doesn't believe in hugging.
Yeah.
And barely handshaking, you know?
And definitely no dancing. Like, if they saw the Latino dances that the mostly majority Mexican congregation, Spanish congregation, you know, like, you know, they would be all up on each other a lot of times, sometimes. And, you know, as a witness, when you go from the English congregation, you see that, like, that's, like, shocking. Like, holy moly, you guys can actually touch each other? You're not supposed to be, you know, leave space for Jesus?
Well, they did say that we warmed up the congregation a little bit.
Yeah.
Because we decided to start, you know,
hugging.
Yeah, hugging. And some other brothers adapted that. And they were like, wow, you guys are so, you know, so loving, so endearing. And it's like, no, dude.
This is just us.
You're just supposed to be, you know, like, as a human, you're supposed to love each other, you know? Like,
Yeah, like
why are you so stiff?
What's the point of being in a cult if you guys can't at least show love with each other? Like it baffles my mind, right? Like they were like being in this organization where there's so many rules and you can't even hug each other. Like culturally, that's not okay. Like you can't be close. It was frustrating. Either way, everywhere you go, there's always going to be an issue with the organization. You know, so this is at a point where we are a little bit better off in the English congregation.
Correct.
And that's at a certain point too. I go back to the Spanish.
I did not.
You did not. And I went with our parents, and I was
But if I remember, it was very short lived, because at that time a brother was talking about a congregation that needed help.
Oh, yeah, when we went to that other town and drove.
Yes.
Yeah.
The CEO came and he told an elder, he told all the elders,
oh,
basically,
yes. Because
that there was a greater need.
Because there was a lot of brothers there on paper, but none of them could have privileges because they were all illegal.
Yeah, so they sat down basically the whole body of elders.
Yes,
except for one person.
Yeah, that's right. And then around that point, when we heard about that, that's when Dad, who had lost his privileges because we moved, which is a whole nother problem, he became a ministerial servant. And then he went over there as a ministerial servant. Mm-hmm. But he had so many assignments, he was basically an elder. I mean, he was conducting the watchtower. That's something that servants don't do. Servants don't conduct the watchtower.
And you were being used for...
I was being used for damn near everything. I should have been a servant. I was doing the AV audio, like when we were old school audio with a projector and having to use this weird KH-Conf system. And I was doing that. I was doing literature. I was doing territories. And I don't know if I did accounts. I think that was next up.
Can I say that opened up a whole nother can of worms?
Ugh, I hated having all those assignments.
We drove so much.
Yeah.
I think we brought like a brand new car.
A brand new vehicle went from 0 miles, literally.
A model of the year, basically. Mm-hmm. And it went from 0 miles to like 100
within a few years
plus within a few years.
Yeah, we drove a ton.
Basically, we were set aside, like ignored by majority of the congregation because they thought that we were too how would you explain it? Like,
it's like we didn't fit in, basically. Yeah. And we didn't fit in because although I don't believe it was intentional, since we weren't traditional and we weren't Mexican. We're not, right?
Yeah, we weren't.
We're not. We didn't really fit in with their own like culture. So
I do believe that they thought that because we were I guess a little more well off a lot of times, which we were not.
We weren't well off.
We were very much struggling. We were using the little bit of money we had to go to these territories. Mm-hmm. They thought that we were just being, I guess, a hoity-toity is what some people would say. They were like, oh, they don't want to spend time with us. And it was like, no, you guys just never invited us anywhere. Literally,
we would go to a buffet and we wouldn't know that they were going to that buffet. Mm-hmm. And we would meet them there and then they'd be sitting over there and no one would call us over.
And they literally would go to us and be like, what are you guys doing here? Like, we're eating here.
Oh my gosh.
You shouldn't be here.
It was like, I can't even imagine what some people put up with. It was
the kind of instances where you go, hey brother, do you have any plans this weekend?
No.
We'd like to hang out as a family. And they go, no, we don't. And so we would go to a restaurant, local one, and see them there with other brothers. And they would go, oh, what are you doing here? Like, ugh. And then they would purposely not look our way the whole time and try not to talk to us.
Yeah, frankly, it felt like racism or like some sort of discrimination.
Yes.
Yeah.
In
what's supposed to be God's organization, right?
And there was a family that were in the same situation as us. They lived maybe a few miles away from us.
Yeah.
So we were traveling about the same amount. And I would say I almost felt a little jealous because everyone babied them.
Yeah.
Like the daughter always had sisters who wanted to hang out with them. They would supply them like breakfast and lunch and dinner because they said, "Oh, poor brothers, they're traveling so far." And these people were, I mean, they were leeches. They were leeches.
They really were. Oh my gosh, the brother was a vacuum.
If you would cook a whole turkey, they would eat it on their own before they let the person who served the turkey to them, eat.
Yeah.
And we were always the type to, like, try to bring as much as people gave, you know?
I never went for seconds. We were very considerate in that aspect.
Yes.
And the thing is, I know this is going to come out sounding like we are complaining, because frankly, we are complaining. We are. But none of this is the reason we left the organization.
No, it was just something that kind of dipped into our spirituality.
Yeah, know? It dipped into our spirituality, and it made us sad, because we were supposed to be happy like we were over there in the city. And no matter what congregation we went to down here, it was never any better. It always had their own issues.
Every congregation had. I'll be honest. We live in the South. There is racism. That is something that exists, and unfortunately, we've had to deal with it a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean,
it is. It's kind of scary when you hear some of the people talk about other people of nationalities, and you go, "Well, we're supposed to be Jehovah's Witnesses, you know, we're supposed to have love and not even look at people for what they are, you know."
Yeah. The one thing I do appreciate about witnesses is that I never felt uncomfortable speaking Spanish around witnesses, even if they were from the South, even if they were from anywhere. You could speak in your natural tongue and you would not face any sort of racism at all. That was never a thing, right? Mm-hmm. Other than a joke like, "What y'all talking about me?" That's always a joke you always hear, right? But that's just a joke. But when you're out in public here, sometimes I do feel a little bit uncomfortable speaking Spanish. I know that you guys don't, but I've always done it because I know some people turn around and look, right? So I don't want to ever make anybody feel uncomfortable. But as a witness, I never felt that way. There's a few things about being a witness that were good, but it is way like not enough.
So I'm feeling like you can see the roller coaster we had.
Yeah.
We were like at a high at some point.
Yep.
That congregation basically humbled us. We went all the way down to the ground again.
Yep.
And we went right back into... we went back to the congregation we were in before.
Yeah, we went back.
In the English.
Later, we moved to another town. We physically moved to another town, a bigger town, not a huge city.
And we're getting very close to
modern
day right now.
We're getting close to modern day. It's where we leave around like a year ago.
I do believe, though, when we moved back to the English congregation, we all kind of recuperated.
We did recuperate. And the city, when we moved to the city, I mean this city, right? What we're talking about, it came with a lot of perks of living in the town, being surrounded by more people, not that isolation we felt before.
Yeah, different nationalities too. You know, the congregations were all of different diverse backgrounds, you know.
Yeah.
People from different parts of the United States also.
Even the English congregation, yeah. Like, you know, there was brothers from California, brothers from Michigan, quite a few from Michigan.
Yeah.
Some from, you know, northeastern states.
From
Boston. Yeah, Boston, yeah. So, you know, a little bit better, even in the English congregation and in the Spanish congregation. I mean, yeah, majority Mexican, but that part was never an issue in that congregation.
Never.
It was never. I never felt like being not Mexican was a problem, like it was in that congregation before.
But a lot of those people don't even like the congregation we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about that Spanish?
About that Spanish. It has a really bad reputation.
It does have a bad reputation.
A lot of people leave that. They're like, "Oh no, thank goodness I left that congregation. It was terrible."
Yeah, it's a very gossip congregation.
Yeah.
The problem was gossip.
They're known for like picking one family or a person and just basically destroying them.
Yeah, that's happened to several. Oh my gosh, the stories we could tell about specific brothers that have been screwed by people in that congregation.
Unfortunately, we were the lucky ones to win, I guess, that at that time to be the target of the bullying, basically.
Yeah, but at that point, like, I had become in that congregation like a year in. Mm-hmm. I became a servant, a ministerial servant, and Dad became an elder. We both we bumped up, and then I was very Pimo.
I'd like to congratulate myself for never becoming a pioneer. I'd like to say, good job, me.
Yes, excellent, because you really dodged a bullet there. And I was a servant, and I was fully Pimi. And you were Pimi, too. Mm-hmm. You just weren't, like, super Pimi. I don't know if I was super Pimi, but I wanted to be active, because I fully believed it was the truth. I wanted to do more. I would take more privileges. I always gave talks. And then we moved back to the English, and it was the same servant talks. You not a pioneer, right?
I'm good.
but really, you know, it was this whole thing of like us wanting to do more but never doing more. But the final like thing that drug it down, other than a few like crumbles that all throughout our lives would make me doubt the truth, right? I've always had that. But the final thing that like really did it in was COVID. And I think that's what we'll get into next time.
Yes. We're going to talk about the pandemic.
The pandemic. The COVID shakeup.
The Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
All that fun stuff.
Yeah, that's really what was like really got us not just discouraged spiritually, but like helped us see that it wasn't the truth.
Okay, but I don't want to talk about it a lot.
We won't talk about it.
I want to talk about it next time.
Yeah. Anyway, so thank you guys for watching this video. If you like this video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. There'll be videos on the first Wednesday. The schedule is in the description. I don't remember. It's the last Saturday of every month and the first Wednesday of every month, I think. Or no, the second Wednesday. Either way, thank you guys for watching. If you like it, hit like, subscribe, and be that way you're notified for every upcoming video. We appreciate you guys so much.
We love you.
Love you guys. Take care.
Bye.
Have a good one.